Welcome to another episode of Victory Leaders Lounge podcast, where we talk about leadership and successful entrepreneurs and veterans come and tell their story. I hope you enjoy the show. Follow me. Let's go. I'm sorry I cut you off there, Bob, but thank you everybody for tuning in for another episode of Victory Leaders Lounge. I'm JJ Hardy, and I'm here for another episode. I do want to let you know that this is brought to you by Victory Leadership Coaching, my company. And we bring you this as many times as I can get a guest, and I put a live episode up on Spotify every week with all the other platforms that podcasting is supplied from there. And thank you. If you see this on whatever platform you're on, please like and subscribe. Bob, thank you for joining me on my show, and this is going to be great. Thank you.
Yeah, JJ, I'm looking forward to it, and thanks for the invitation.
Yeah. So Bob Lambert, he's been in business for a really, really long time. He's worked for places, he's worked for himself, he's done all kinds of different ventures. Plus, he's a military veteran. So I'm going to let him share a little bit about his background with everybody. If you wouldn't mind, Bob, I'm going to go ahead and give you the floor.
Thank you. Well, I grew up a poor boy in the rural South. No, I'm kidding. Long story short is that, I got into Naval Reserves when I was in college and got called up actually. And then they pulled the plug. I didn't have to go. Thank God. I got a pregnant wife and a couple more things going on. So started my journey in corporate, a little company called Nestle. I was brought on there in a marketing position, then ended up over on the sales side. So I had a decade of experience with one of the largest, global companies in the world. Phenomenal training, phenomenal leadership, had some great things. Actually had a lot of former military in their management, which I was very comfortable with. From there then launched out. So unfortunately, I got my comeuppance quickly. In my 10th year, I was summarily fired. I turned 30 and I was asked for a divorce. So, that was talk about being shot down big time. And a lot of it had to do with, I just was, had my head so far up my fanny. It was just, so it was good. It was all good. That started my entrepreneurial ventures. So I ended up joining a company and getting some sweat equity because I had a lot of my background was consumer packaged goods. So I, ascended with that. And then finally that company got bought out by the Swiss. And I thought, maybe it's time for me to leave again. And then ended up in successively co-founding 4 companies over multiple decades. The last company that I created, which was really my passion for 21 years, was called the Samurai Business Group. And that was a program where we created sales mastery for B2B salespeople and also management. So have a strong background in that, both in marketing and sales. One of the things your audience might be interested in, one of the companies that I founded was called The Marketing Edge. And that was a full service marketing agency here in Chicago in the mid 80s. I know you and I talked about this. I still can relate to young people with this story because that company, actually Willy Wonka brands, we helped them launch Nerds Candy. So quite an interesting backstory. The other thing, the second out of the park home run was we were the agency tapped to create and launch Muhammad Ali's Worldwide Fan Club. So I had the opportunity to be with the champ and do all that. Through all these experiences, it was a blend really of marketing and sales. So, I kind of coined the phrase, probably not the first one, but back in the 80s, business development, because when those two come together and they work in sync, and do the functions, what they're really supposed to do, is amazing. We created some phenomenal campaigns. And generally speaking, I was interfacing with, consumer packaged goods companies like Kraft and Nestle and ConAgra and on with the marketing people, because I sat in that role so I could do the speak. But more importantly, having been in sales, I know how important it was for them to interface with sales. So the campaigns, we were pretty determined when we sat with those folks that you got to get the sales organization involved because they know the voice of the customer. They're the people that can really do the alignment and try to get the objective done, and that is get sales. Mm-hmm. So that was a quick round. Then 2022, I sold my company to a company that I've known for over 30 years. 2 women founded it over 33 years ago called QCSS, which is Quality Sales and Service. And what it was, it just call center operation. Now they have my undying admiration, frankly, because that is extremely tough business. And to be in it for 33 years and survive creating a multi-million-dollar company is saying something. Also, we have a lot in common is our faith. So I knew that that would be a good fit. We'd been talking for 30 years back and forth, helping them train up all their staff, their SDRs, customer service people, management. One of the co-founders actually went through our entire program for a whole year. So they're very familiar with what we had and what we did. So ended up where it was about that time. I was 75 years of age, and maybe I'll think about the future, get out alive. And so made a deal in 22. I sold the company and then came on to be on for 3 years afterwards to get everything going. And I'm so thrilled with what's been happening. And I can get into that in a bit more detail if you have other questions, JJ.
Well, sure. I think so. I have a lot of entrepreneurs in my audience, but I also have a lot of larger companies there with their HR and operations and stuff. But I think that the entrepreneurs would really like to hear maybe what some actionable advice would be. So when they are first starting their company and they're having the issues with the customer generation and stuff like that, if you could give one great piece of advice, Bob, on that. You know what? Where does your mind take you on advice for something like that?
Well, that's on everybody's mind. You got to create business. I don't care what the business is, and unfortunately, too many entrepreneurs fall in love with what they made or what they do, and they forget this thing about that everybody's going to come and they're going to want it. Sales is a constant. If it doesn't start with an S and end with an S, you have no business. Now, you might get off to a great start because of your network and people and you create something and so on and so forth. But sooner or later, you're going to exhaust that. And so the point there is what are you doing on a consistent basis for business development? The entrepreneur's dilemma is this: they go out and sell it, and all of a sudden, it's like they got to come in, they got to skin it, they got to serve it, and do all that and execute it. And you run out of time because you're not doing the stuff that's generating the business. You're in the business because you love it. And that's great, and I understand it, and you want that customer satisfaction. But sooner or later, you got to start really realizing I got to allocate certain time to this specific thing. What I would share with you is why I'm so excited about QCSS, because I never had this capability before, and I preach to teach it, how to go out and prospect and all that. But here's the dirty little secret. You only have 1,444 minutes in a day. Okay. You've got to be able to be effective and efficient with your time, because time is everything. So basically what I'm sharing with people today is hire it out, okay? Outsource that stuff. I don't know a person that's thrilled with going out, knocking on doors, making calls endlessly, sending out emails, LinkedIn messages and all that. That takes a lot of time. And it's disheartening because of the response rate, because everybody's bombing people today. What we do at QCSS, which is really great, is we literally work through LinkedIn. We have what we call a waterfall process. And we can go out there and do all that work for you, actually set qualified appointments on your calendar. Work very diligently with our clients as far as messaging goes. Who is that ideal audience? Who you're targeting? Who you're trying to get to? What that leaves you is an enormous amount of time to go out, which is even more relevant as far as your business. Networking, getting back to people that letting people know what you're doing, and creating that. Getting on shows like this, getting out in public speaking. That frees up some time now for you to get out face-to-face or on things like this or podcasts to really let a bigger audience know what you're doing. But most importantly is that audience that you already know. Too many people, and also getting back to your customers. You should be having, what we call quality referral or quality reviews at least every half a year with your clients. I found too many of my clients we're going back to their clients and asking for business, getting a referral. But first, they got to make sure that they're happy with what they're doing. And that's really one of the things that you constantly want to do is work your company, because upselling, cross-selling, they'll refer you on to people that they know because they work with you. That is really critical. And so what you're doing now by outsourcing that, and I know it's a spend, but the fact of the matter is the return on the investment of your time, number one, and guess what? Generally speaking, most of the clients we work with, they get 1 or 2 good sales a month, and just boom, that pays for that in spades. And now they're actually bringing more business in, working their warm market. And it takes time. You got to earn people's trust. You got to be able to get to people. A lot of people know a lot of people, but they don't take advantage of that. So also getting in some of these networking groups, either online or in person is another big way that you can spend quality time face to face or in these groups to be able to do that. Because you're going to have a lot of hand raisers, about your business, or they know somebody that you need to know. The other thing is working your LinkedIn. Everybody has a downline, a group of people that they know. This takes time. Now, I will tell you that you got to invest some time in this, is doing your background, doing your homework, and really getting to know what those people do, how what you do would appeal to them, or them referring you on to somebody else. And there's a popular phrase, know, like, and trust trumps everything. You cannot go out and expect people to start giving you business. I got to tell you, over 90% of these network groups and everything, like, it's all takers. It's no givers. And so the philosophy is to give. I don't care what it is. If it's another lead, I'm introducing you people, whatever. JJ, you know this because I'm a giver. I love it. I get absolute delight in giving people. So every conversation I have, I'm also listening for opportunities of how I might be able to help them.
Yep, I agree, and I'm the same way. I mean, I think that after the first time I met you, I made an introduction within 48 hours. I mean, that's you got to get people to know that you're not just in it for yourself. That you're actually out there to serve a purpose, and that the knowing and the liking, that's just the roadmap to get to the trust, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and there's another dirty little secret I want to share. A lot of entrepreneurs get in because they think they know how to sell, they got the product, they got all that down, and so on and so forth. It's really, you got to get on the other side of the table to understand what's in the best interest of the people that you're talking to. And so the dirty little secret that I found out and confirmed actually in getting involved in all this is that over 70% of the people we throw a lead over the fence to or put it on their calendar have never been trained properly how to have a discovery conversation. Because you only don't get one shot at it. And so we offer that as part of what we do, is that kind of training so that you can up the advantage and up the average of actually getting it over the goal line, converting sales. Because conversion right now is dismal. Mm-hmm. And the other thing too is working with quality people. There's a lot of folks that are out there. And the unfortunate part about that industry's been trashed up pretty good. Just imagine, and this is statistical, over the turnover rate with most of in the industry is 100 to 200% a year. Now think about what the continuity or sustainability is of having people turning over like that. What I'm proud to say is that QCSS, average SDR and customer service rep, has been with us 2.7 years.
Wow.
Now, I can tell you one thing. That's not because they're getting overpaid. It's because they're getting treated properly. Good example, last March, we had one of our team members, single mom, apartment caught on fire, wiped out her possessions. We did a Kickstarter within the company, raised enough money to get her into a new apartment, get a down payment, get her kids a couple, preliminary clothes, and also some furniture, beds to lay on, and so on and so forth. And a lot of that was through our contacts of people that we knew that would make contributions or help out. I'm kind of shining the light on something I'm pretty proud of, but the fact of the matter is there's not a lot of companies that do that kind of stuff.
No, definitely not. And I could share a bunch of different statistics on it, but the bottom line is most of the stuff that I advertise leads to people don't leave companies, they leave the leadership. So if they're not being treated well in the organization that they work in, that makes perfect sense, Bob. I mean, if they're not being treated well and their needs aren't being met, then the financial aspect, I mean, if you're a good salesperson, you can make great money anywhere. If you can fill up a calendar, you can go work at a ton of different places. But right. If you're being treated well, you're going to stay where you feel most comfortable.
Yeah. There's a lot been published, since the pandemic and through the pandemic about this as far as employee engagement. Mm-hmm. There's good reason for that.
Yes.
It's how do they feel like they're being, helped with or, taught and trained and a lot of that other stuff. As I brought up about the training, this through the military, and so do I. We'd be nothing without the training and the discipline that goes on in the military. It's the same thing with this. So it's basically do the first things first, keep the first thing first, and that is no business runs on not having sales. Okay, so how important is that? Operations, that's another thing. You got to get that right. Now, how do you do that balance in the meantime of getting your operations straight so that you can function, you can execute on a sale, but at the same time, getting sales right so you're getting it coming in. You got a constant flow. and being a business owner 4 times over, I know how important cash flow is and all the rest of that stuff. So also, I share a couple of things as far as entrepreneurialism goes, because I've done it a long time. And that is, number one, if you can avoid it, don't hire friends or relatives. Okay. I've been in a lot of small mid-market companies, family-owned businesses. There's a lot of dysfunction there. And God forbid you got to, fire a relative or let them go or something like that. It gets pretty ugly at Thanksgiving dinner. That's the first rule that I say. Business to me is black and white. It's 1 and 0s. Okay. If you want to have employees or people in your company, that's gray. You better get the gray part right, because the business part is pretty black and white, but it's people. And that's the biggest asset you're going to have in a company, the big expense you're going to have. You got to get that right. And too few companies don't. Unfortunately, if you're taking, you got to be very considerate about taking people on, how you employ them, how you can. The big thing, particularly with sales, is how do you interview them? Salespeople are very good at telling you what you want to hear.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you're going to be hiring salespeople. You really got to get under the covers, and look at it. A lot of people make the mistake, especially smaller mid-market companies, make the mistake, oh, you work for a big company, so that translates. No, it doesn't. It does not translate. They've had a lot of help. They've had a lot of infrastructure around them. And they're going to come in there in a bare bones operation. They're going to have be the chief cook, bottle washer, and everything else. So you got to have somebody that understands that, because I've seen the failure that has been monumental for a lot of companies. And you can't have those kind of failures in a small company. That's a big investment of time and money and everything else. You got to make sure that you get it right. And there's nothing that's perfect. I've had to let people go in my career. So I understand that. The first one was that I was under threat. And basically, my boss came to me and said, if you don't get that guy gone by Monday, you're gone, So had to swallow a lot of sleep, lost a lot of sleep over the weekend, because he had 4 kids and a pregnant wife. And
Oh, gosh.
here's the upside. It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
He called me 2 years later to thank me. I mean, he was really made me so humble, because he said, you helped me with the biggest favor I've ever had in my life. I got a better job. I'm making more money than I ever made. I'm happy. And I thought, wow, thank God for that boss that forced me into it.
Not very many people say that. Usually when they're getting forced into something with their boss, it's to some dirty, nasty project that they're not going to look forward to again. But yes, absolutely. Well, I do want to find out a little bit about this book that you sent me a message on. So you co-wrote a book with somebody else. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Unfortunately, I had a business partner about a year after I started Samurai Business Group. It was phenomenal. We were kind of yin and yang. He was the intellectual part of the thing, and I was the guy that was the face of the company. His name was Dan Kreitzer, and I lost Dan about 7 years ago to cancer, and that was a real gut punch, because we were together as a team over 18 years. So Dan always had it in him to write a book, and I was all over that too, because there was a lot of things that we want to present. And that was to present really what we had worked on and did for 25 years, what we call the buying decision model. And I got to tell you something, we didn't discover fire. This has been going on since the dawn of man. What we did was really to codify, and what we teach, coach, and train people is how people buy, not how you sell them, which is a huge flip of the coin back then, 25 years ago and 30 years ago. And so between us, we had a lot of experience, we had a lot of training, and we took the best of all the stuff we did, and we packed that into the buying decision model and the sales mastery program. As the name of would indicate, Samurai Business Group, we use a martial art theory, and that's a belt theory, how people step through this from a competency standpoint to actually earn a black belt. And that was a year-long program that people had. All of our class doubled or tripled their sales within 12 to 18 months after going through the program.
Wow.
I would say that it was fantastic. It was results driven, because that's how we got measured, by the results people got. Now, it's very hands-on. We'd run classes during pandemic. We put it up online, all that kind of thing. But basically, buying decision model is really something that everybody goes through. What was thrilling for me is I could take a client through that. I could take a prospect through that, and they'd be shaking their head. Yeah, I did that. Yeah, I did that. Yeah, that's how I look at it. And so there's about 5 steps through that. And basically, at the time when we wrote, it was a little bit more clinical. We really made it, a lot more receptive to people from an English standpoint. but this how and why people buy. That's basically what it was all about. And walking through that is basically what's going on, what's the situation. Then they drop into evaluation of what they need to do that, and then they confirm that by actually taking action or a direction on that. And then there's a post follow up with everything. Okay. On the how the why part of it is, it was basically getting into what they know automatically what's going on from here up to here, get it up here. And it's through to activate the program, we use a method been around since the dawn of man. It's called the Socratic method of questioning. Okay, who, what, why, when, how, and who. And it's basically, 6 wise men taught me, right? That you ask those questions. The reason those is really important is because it, with what we taught, is it's relevant, okay, and to the point of how you led through that questioning. Now, a good example of that would be, a matter of fact, I lecture at University of Northwestern and University of Chicago and all that. And these students are filled up. And one of the things, I got 45 minutes to teach them how to sell. So basically what I told them at the end of this program, you're going to learn how to ask great questions and shut up and listen. And God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth, use them in those proportions. And a lot of people don't understand that. Because when you ask a great question, particularly a Socratic question, okay, it's not a yes or no question. Okay, they have to actually, when they do that, it's kicking in their thinking, and both of you learning what's going on. That will lead naturally on to another question if you have to go a little bit deeper. But that's really the essence of what this is. And again, it's been around since the dawn of man. We didn't discover fire here. And all good salespeople, by the way, ask great questions. So there's been books written on it and so on and so forth. But we chose to use the Socratic method because Socrates once said, I can't teach a man anything. I can only ask him questions and make them think. And that's exactly what you're doing in a buy-sell situation. Or we're doing this all the time. Anytime you think you get at a sports bar, it's just a series of questions back and forth, right? And people and bringing out, well, why do you think so-and-so is such good? Or why did they fail? What about the defense and so on and so forth? So I think those are all things that we all have naturally. It's just a matter of understanding how to use it properly in a conversation, particularly when it's a buy-sell situation.
That's true. And all that is really is a form of great active listening. If you can come up with a great question and sit back and do it without responding to what you're thinking, you're responding to what that person is saying. That's probably the most valuable thing you could ever do in any conversation, not just a sales conversations. I think John Maxwell wrote a book called
Conversations.
What's that?
Communications, yeah. His latest book.
It was, I think it's good leaders ask great questions.
Yeah.
And so it goes right along with what you said about Socrates, what you're saying about sales and everything else. It's not just sales, it's just excellent leadership to be able to have that skill to get to the root cause of a problem through asking questions. Because when it's sales, that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're looking to see what they need. And how do you know what they need? Well, you ask.
I ask the questions up front, and the other thing, when I go into a discovery conversation, I'm up front real quick. I'm just telling people, we're going to have a discovery conversation. I'm not here to sell you anything. If you see that there's a fit and I see there's a fit, then we'll take it past that. If not, maybe I have a recommendation for you, a referral for you, or just leave them better off than when you met them, and people don't want to be bombed with right off the bat, hey, do you need 10 pounds of this, that kind of thing. So anyway, hopefully those are some helpful things,
Oh, extremely helpful. Extremely helpful. So, you've been in business, both working in and on and selling and doing all of the things for a really, really long time. We're getting over 20 minutes. And so usually what I ask at this point is, if you had one nugget of wisdom to share with somebody who's either working in or working on a business, what would that be?
What exactly, JJ, and I know you're going to be delighted, get a great coach, get a mentor, pay them what they're worth every penny due. Again, vetting process, making sure there's a fit between you and them, that you feel confident with them, that they're truth tellers, that they can be transparent with you. A lot of great wisdom and coaches out there today. A lot of folks that put a lot of time in businesses that can really help you up your game. They can see what you can't see. At the height of his career here in Chicago, Michael Jordan had 7 coaches in every asset of his life. Okay. One of the greatest athletes in the world, but also a person that understood he had blind spots. You know, there were things that you can't see. And also somebody's willing to tell you the truth, not a friend, not a relative or somebody else. Somebody's really looking in the eye and say, you know, tell you like it is. It can be tough to swallow, but that's what you're paying them for, you know, and you pay attention when you're paying somebody.
Yes, you do. And when there's an outcome that you come up with, you do actually tend to take action on it because that's what you're paying for.
Well, yeah, they hold you accountable, you know,
Yep.
and that's the other great thing. I've had great coaches and mentors all my career. And I go to people that I can ask advice for, because I got to tell you, as an entrepreneur and individual, you can get some wrong thinking.
Yeah.
The other thing I would share with you is leaders or readers. Just get out there. I don't care if it's a podcast, listening books on tape, or other things, you know, constantly fill your mind. You know, Zig Ziglar once said, turn your car into a university, because back in the day, you spent a lot of time driving, and, you know, there were tapes, CDs, and all that stuff. So, you know, turn that time into learning, and you'll never go back. It's amazing, because there's a lot of great programs. There's a lot of mastermind network groups out there now that you have a lot of people that join those that have different perspectives, that are willing to give, you know, and share with you. The other thing about it is too, you got a lot to give, and you got to understand that you have a lot inherently to give. I don't care if you're 20 years of age or if you're 70 years of age. There's a lot of wisdom, and I learn a lot from younger people today. Yeah, and I'm thankful for that, and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, likewise. Well, that's such good advice, and actually, this is probably a great time to share that. You mentioned mastermind groups. Yeah. I'm actually starting from the ground up right now, a group where it's all veterans, people who have served in the military, their spouses, their dependents if they wish, but all entrepreneurs to sign up. So if that's something anybody in the audience is interested in, I have to put that out there, because we're going to be doing networking, which you mentioned is extremely important. We're going to be doing lunch and learns, and then we're also, once we get enough people in there, there's going to be some internal teachings that go on. But really, it's just a place where we all come together, and just like we did in the military, we provide support without spamming all over the place. So I don't like to sell on my live streams and my podcast, but you brought up masterminds, and you know, I think it's just such a wonderful thing, because that's kind of what has given me a lot of help, is just joining different communities, whether it's in person or you know, different ones online. I just think that the more people you meet when you're trying to go into business, or if you're trying to enhance your life in any way, the better, because you don't know everything. So the earlier you realize that, and then you surround yourself with smarter people than you, the better off you're going to be.
Yeah, I couldn't say it better than what you did. And count on me to help you, okay? Because we've talked about this.
Yep.
Hopefully, I qualify a little bit to maybe give you some help with it, and those veterans that you're bringing in.
Yep.
I know how important this is. There's a lot of tough stuff that's been going on out there for veterans. So count me in.
Okay, sounds good. Well, thank you, Bob, so much for coming on the show. For being a great friend outside of the show, and you know, hopefully that relationship gets better and better. For everyone in the audience, I just have to tell you that I appreciate you for being a part of my journey in the last little over a year now. Since I started doing this live streaming and podcasting, I wouldn't be where I am without you. But if you see this show where you're at right now or in the future, please like it. If you're on my YouTube, please subscribe to it. We got to extend our reach there. But more important than that, if there's a certain subject or whatever that you would like to hear from me or my guests or anything like that, please put a comment below. And especially if you want to be connected with Bob, put a comment below, because, you know, that's what it's all about.
Anybody, by the way, anybody can reach out to me. I'm very accessible. Best probably by phone or text, 847-922-1498. Again, 847-922-1498.
Thank you so much for sharing that with the audience, Bob. And thank you for being a guest. And to everybody out there, I look forward to seeing you all next time. Please don't hesitate to participate in the discussion. Everybody have a good day.